Good evening, everybody. Now, it is time to wake up and face the facts. Our universities are immigration rackets for low-skilled workers, and we need to stop the ridiculous graduate visa scheme. It amazes me the way in which today's Migration Advisory Committee's report into university immigration has been reported by the British media. Look at some of the headlines. They say stuff like, graduate visa routes should remain in place, say government's migration advisors. All right, who are these advisors? They are 5 university professors. We've got Professor Brian Bell, Professor Dina Kiwan, Professor Sergi Padros-Padro, Dr. Madeline Sumption, and Professor Joe Schwafield, and Della McVeigh as well, formerly of the Home Office. That's nice, isn't it? Look, they are the turkeys who have been asked whether or not they would like to vote for Christmas. And they've said no. Imagine my shock. This is the same Migration Advisory Committee that in 2018 advised that we shouldn't have a graduate visa scheme. But then since 2018, of course, British universities have entered into the giant immigration Ponzi scheme, and they now have to close down or reduce their offering if we stop letting in every Tom, Dick and Harry. Not that that's what they're actually called, of course, because students are coming from Nigeria, India, China and Pakistan. They account for 70% of all graduate visas, with India accounting for more than 40% on its own, apparently. These are all countries with a terrible record at returning people who we do decide that we don't want here. It's a backdoor into Britain. Have a look at who the graduate visa appeals to, OK? It is not people from developed countries, but it is for people from developing countries, isn't it? You can just have a look at it there for yourself. It's also a complete myth that it attracts skilled workers. Remember when this guy said this?
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us.
Well, there's actually quite a good chance that if he was talking about what's going on at our universities now, he'd be right, because apparently 66% of all graduate visas are postgraduate degrees from non-Russell Group universities. So they are not doing top degrees at top universities. And then what happens? Yes, they end up doing jobs that they don't need a degree for. It was never their desired career choice, and they earn a lot less money than they'd hoped for. Let's talk about the money, shall we? OK, if we're going to accept astronomical numbers of people from radically different parts of the world, they have to do jobs so that we can see economic benefit to their existence in Britain. That's the trade-off, isn't it? But, no, that's just another lie that we're actually being told, because the median annual earning for the 73% of graduate visa holders who were in employment for at least 1 month in the financial year ending 2023 was just £17,815. So compare this overall median earnings in 2023 to just under £30,000 and earnings for full-time workers of just under 35k. Look, in other words, those on the graduate visa system earn around half as much as UK workers. But there's another key point, isn't there, about today's report, that the vast majority of our media do not want you to know about. In the dying days of Theresa May's administration, she stated that we should try to have 600,000 foreign students enrolling every year. This was a completely random number plucked out of nowhere. What this report says is that there is no real way that completely random number could be met if we reduce the graduate visa system. So that's what we're dealing with here. We are now dealing with a quota just imposed upon us by Theresa May out of nothing, out of thin air. We have a Home Secretary in the shape of James Cleverly, who clearly would not have commissioned this report if he wanted to actually reduce graduate visas. The report is written by academics who would possibly not have a job if they recommended the scrap of graduate visas, and the report hinges on whether or not we can hit a meaningless round number of foreign students set during Theresa May's prime ministerial death rattle, and involves making sure that any old foreigner can come to Britain and study underwater basket weaving at the Polytechnic of Broken Dreams and then go and work in Tesco's. I'll also just say what no elected politician can actually say. Would it really be such a bad thing if some universities cease to exist? Do we need Plymouth Marjon University or the Uni of East London, Keele? Do we really need Keele University? Do we need people to be able to study a one-year course in stand-up comedy at the University of Kent? Or floral design at the University Centre Myerscough? Or horonology, I think that's the study of time, at Birmingham University, a 3-year degree, so ironically they put a time limit on it anyway. Seriously, look, I'll just say it again, all right? Our Home Secretary does not have to adhere to the findings of this report today, for the reasons that I've outlined. We cannot let a handful of academics with massive amounts of skin in the game dictate our immigration policy to us. The opportunity to come and live and work in Britain, enjoy our way of life, send your kid to the local school and use the NHS has to be worth more than a bang average Mickey Mouse degree from a backwater minnow university. No, I'm sorry, OK, but if you want to ride Britain's roller coaster, you have to be a certain height. That's the rules.